The word Asian doesn't make any sense to me. Let's go to the map and I'll show you why.
So last year, I crossed the border from Vietnam into China, and it was like entering a whole new world. Because you see, from Hanoi to the border, it's your typical Vietnam countryside road. The roads are bumpy, and sometimes it's dusty, and people set up their shops and pit stops all along the road. However, the moment you cross right here, the highways, they just become modern, developed, and it's just open and spacious. It's like any other highway you'd see in a developed country. Crazy how just this border can make a world of difference.
But sometimes the border crossing makes nearly zero difference, as evidenced by my trip to Cambodia from Vietnam. You see, when I crossed this border crossing, it was eerie, because things looked nearly the same, especially in the countryside. However, the only difference was things were in Khmer instead of Vietnamese. And then even as I got into the capital, Phnom Penh, the buildings, the markets, the streets, the street vendors, it all felt the same and it looked the same. Even the atmosphere in the streets with the motorbikes and everything, it felt the same. However, where there were differences though, were in the temples and the national monuments. But even then, it felt there's this kind of like parallelness to it. And all this, I mean, it makes sense given Vietnam and Cambodia's shared past of colonialism and development. Now, I've gone to nearly every country in East Asia, and despite all the differences among them, there are a few common things. For instance, they all have a metro, the buildings, the streets, it's, modern, developed, relatively clean. And it's just also just a cooler climate than Southeast Asia, and it doesn't have that kind of like hecticness of street vendors and motorbikes everywhere. But down in Southeast Asia, at least in Vietnam and Cambodia, the streets are just grimier. There's motorbikes flying around everywhere, and street vendors just open up shop anywhere, in the city and the countryside. There's just more energy to it. However, that's not to say it doesn't get chaotic in the night markets of Taipei or crowded in the sidewalks of Tokyo. However, there's just like comfort in East Asia because of the cooler and cleaner environment. With that being said, the lifestyles between these two regions are very different from each other. Even within the countries themselves, there's already a lot of cultural and ethnic differences. That's why it doesn't make sense to me to group someone who lives all the way in Cambodia as the same group as someone who lives all the way in Japan. They live totally different lives. Different as beyond your general human similarities. I think what makes more sense is grouping us into things like Southeast Asian or East Asian, because then at least there's more common themes among those cultures. Or for instance, whether we were colonized or not colonized, whether we were Sino-influenced or Indian influenced, whether we are a developing or a developed country, or whether you have a hot or cool climate. I think all of these things says a lot more about groups of people as opposed to just labeling us as Asian.